And then you moved on to basically doing espionage. Espionage.
Yep. Yes.
That is a word. How do you jump from this very heartfelt, very complicated, very talented man with such impact to basically, being a spy?
It's all about the... what I find so interesting about acting is that you're investigating the masks we wear. We all wear a mask to some extent. We all present an exterior to the world. And some of those masks are very complicated, and they're defenses against exposure. They're defenses somehow. And I think charisma was one of Hank's defenses, actually. And then to go on to Jonathan Pine, it's almost like his uniform, his charm, his politeness is a defense in some way. Hiding behind the uniform of his deference and elegance is a way of hiding. He doesn't somehow want to be seen. But the events of the first episode compel him to do something very different and much more active, come out of hiding, which I would think, is John le Carré's interest in a way, in calling the novel The Night Manager. What sort of person becomes a night manager in a way? Sort of, creatures of the night, etc. Interesting.
Yeah. So Night Manager, you should check it out if you haven't already.
Thank you.
And you've got so much more along the way, and I just want to bring this up just to show how diversified you have made your career, because you've made decisions. You've made very strong decisions to take on roles that are complex and tell very human stories, even in the extraordinary.
Yeah.
You're now going to be on stage. You popped on yesterday in our panel with Charlie Cox. And you are going to be on stage doing Betrayal.
Yes. You've actually just hit on something which I think is something that's unconscious in a way. Is that I really enjoy playing complex characters because I think we are all complex. And it makes me think of the Walt Whitman poem where he says, I contain multitudes. I think we all contain many, many different aspects of ourselves. And in playing complex people, it's sort of exploring the complexity that we all share in some way. And Betrayal is no different. It's about a triangle of three very intimate, complex relationships. And it's a masterpiece. It's by Harold Pinter. And in lots of ways, it's about intimacy and the things we do to avoid it, and also the things we do because we crave it and we need it. It's a very deep play. There's a lot going on beneath the surface, and what will be really interesting is excavating that. The things that are not said, the things that are felt inside but are never said. I think there's a tension between the external and the internal. So, and I couldn't be more delighted to be working with Charlie Cox and with Zawe Ashton. It'll be there's two really terrific actors and very courageous, and so I think working on this stuff with them will be fascinating.
And it's interesting the way you like to embody these. And we were talking about this idea about impersonation versus imitation, and how you're able to embody these kind of characters. Is there one particular character or one particular role that you have played? 'Cause I mean, man, you've played Hamlet. Like you've done a lot of heart-wrenching characters. You're doing soul searching in a lot of ways. Is there one in particular you felt like was most challenging, or you felt like pulled you so far, was rewarding because it pulled you so far outside of your comfort zone? Do you have a comfort zone?
Yes, I do. It's a really good question. About the soul searching, I think in a way that's sort of part of my own soul searching, I guess, is that I get to sync up with these extraordinary minds, like Shakespeare's mind, or some of the characters I've played, and you align yourself with them and explore their mind, and it's also a strange parallel. There's a mirror in there somewhere. I'd say the most challenging are the Shakespearean characters, because they're so deep, and there's a reason that he's regarded as the greatest writer who ever lived or wrote in the English language, because the way he externalizes human feeling and human experience into words is without equal. And as an actor, you have to step into the authenticity of what those words are describing. You have to feel it, you have to say it, you have to do it, you have to do it all at the same time. And if you miss it, if you miss your mark, it's really obvious. And so the challenge is to live in these very profound emotions. He writes about life and death, fathers and sons, grief, loss, love, passion, anger. These are the things that make us who we are. And you have to step into those things and commit fully. So that's probably the greatest challenge.
Do you have a favorite Shakespeare play?
It sort of changes. Yeah. Depends on the mood. There is something unique about Hamlet, having played it now, because it really is. The character is. The more you do that play, you realize the character is trying to understand if there is meaning in the experience of being alive, which is about the biggest question you can ask, I think.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. But then I also love that I love the comedies. They're so bright and so light. I haven't done so many comedies, and King Lear is very profound, but I'm too young for King Lear. I like watching it.
Well, I think it's time to get some audience questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. It was so interesting, those questions. Thanks, Angelique.
So you have a line. I already knew you were back there. So if you've been around any point of this weekend, we always want to make sure, since you know Tom's name, so that Tom knows your name. But before we get started, I had a very special request that came in, someone who had to leave, who had an audience question for you. Her name is Mariella. She had to go back to DC, but she wanted to know, if you were a kid and you were at Comic-Con, who would be the person you would be most excited to see?
Now or then?
Well, I don't know. You could pick both, either and?
An answer. I mean, if there were Comic-Cons when I was a kid, it would have been Christopher Reeve as Superman. Yeah.
This is a solid answer.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, he started this whole thing. In terms of, superheroes in the movies. Yeah. I mean, I loved watching those films as a child. So.
Yeah. Agreed. Those were the best Superman movies. At me, I don't care. So we'll take audience questions. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hello. My name is Caitlin. I'm from San Antonio. I flew here on Friday and I missed school, and we were supposed to start learning about Hamlet. So my question is there anything that you could tell me going into Hamlet, like what to expect, or...
It's so funny.
It gets dark very fast.
Right. So am I the substitute teacher? Okay, class, please open your textbooks at page 81. How do you start with Hamlet? So you're doing it at school?
I read Act 1, but I don't know a lot about it.
Okay. So the thing you probably already know is that Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. You figured that out. Yeah, okay.
I did.
And his father has just died. That's the key thing, I think, that I found it was easy for me to forget, is it's really basically about that, the beginning, is that it's something we can all relate to, which is he just lost his dad, and he is not over it at all. He's just at the depth of grief. And everything else comes as a result of that grief, really. His response to every other event is because he's so grief-stricken. It doesn't help that the ghost of his dad comes to him pretty early on and says that his uncle murdered him in the garden. That's not an easy piece of news to digest. So he's not a happy chappy, shall we say. But he's highly intelligent and witty, and it's in that turmoil, really, that he starts asking, like, what's the point of life? To be or not to be? That is the question. Of course, the answer is profoundly to be. Profoundly. No matter how bad it gets, to be. But he's in that question of worrying about it. He's like, wow, life is really hard.
Adulting is hard.
Adulting is hard, yeah. What can I tell you? I think there's a really interesting thing about retaliation when you get to the end, which is that retaliation gets you nothing. It actually gets you nothing. You think it's going to make you feel better, but it actually makes you feel worse. And if Hamlet could only have got to a place of forgiveness and inner peace, he might have been all right. But he gets so caught up in needing to enact revenge that revenge is a fool's errand. Revenge is worthless. There you go.
She should get extra credit for that.
Let me know how you get on.